But when you think about soil, do you realize that, you know, it's made up of air, water, organic matter, and broken pieces of rock? You know, that's kind of the question. If you look, there's another button there, another tab, Jennifer, one more. Yeah. So half of that soil is actually just pore space. It's the air and water is in that space between those broken pieces of rock and that organic matter. So that's what soil is. And soil is not the kind of stuff that you walk around outside and you get on your shoes and you bring it inside and you walk around your house and then you sweep it up and have to throw it in the garbage. That's dirt. Soil is something really valuable and really nice stuff if you work making it healthy to grow your vegetables. And those broken pieces of rock are that clay or sand or loam that we kind of talked about a little bit in that poll question. The combination of those pieces of rock. So that's what makes up the structure of your soil, is those pieces of rock. So here's a pie chart that shows what the soil looks like. And as you see, that water and air is half of that soil. And then the broken rock takes up a whole bunch of space in that soil. And that organic matter is just a little tiny sliver over there. It is a really small amount of material in that soil, but it's really, really important. Organic matter is anything that was once living and is now decomposed in the soil. And that, you know, like you might have clay soil or sandy soil, but that organic matter is really, really important because that can change the structure of your soil. You can't really change the texture of your soil. If you have clay soil, you just have clay soil. You can't like add a whole bunch of sand to it and turn it into sandy soil or do something like that. But you can add organic matter to make that soil healthier. So here's a symptom of poor soil, some symptoms of poor soil. So if your soil looks like this, like right now, it's probably wetter than this. Like if it dries out for a while, it might start looking like this. This would be really pretty bad soil. And one thing that I could tell you about this soil is it's compacted. And sometimes compaction happens because you till too much or you till when it's wet. The soil's too wet to till. And also compaction could happen if you step on it a lot, you know, maybe not to this extreme, but, you know, if you were doing construction on your yard and you had tractors driving back and forth over your garden and it compacted the soil, this might be what it looked like. So this is really dry and really cracked. If it was really raining like it's been recently, maybe there would be puddles of water on top of the soil because this soil wouldn't absorb water very well. And this would be really, really hard to dig this soil. So to improve a soil like this, adding organic matter is what you need to do. And actually to improve any soil, adding organic matter is basically the answer. And mostly what we're going to talk about for organic matter is we're going to talk about compost and adding that to your soil to improve the quality of your soil. So I noticed that there's quite a few of you that are going to be doing container gardens. And sometimes like I might, you know, have garden beds, but then I have a few containers too. So it might help for everyone to listen to this. But there's some tips for container gardening. And one thing is that potting soil is really essential. You really need to, you know, go out and buy potting soil. You can't do it any other way. The thing about container gardens is that when you plant them, there's not enough nutrients, even if that potting soil has fertilizer in it, there's not enough nutrients to last through the entire season. So what happens is when you do a container garden, you take a pot and you put some fertilizer in there, you know, depending on, you know, what you're planting and stuff. But, you know, usually it's something like a half a cup of maybe a all-purpose fertilizer, and then mix it in with the soil and plant your plant in there. And then throughout the season, you're going to want to probably use a liquid fertilizer, and that seems to work the best. Is so you take a liquid fertilizer, and usually what you do is you mix a couple tablespoons of a liquid fertilizer into a gallon of water, and then you would water the plants, and you would do that weekly. Water that that container plant with that fertilizer thing. Like, so basically all season long you would do that. The other thing about container gardens is that if you use that container last year and you pulled up the plant and there's a container full of soil, you should refresh that or replace it in the new year. So what you want to do is take that, dump it out, dump all that soil out into a tarp or a piece of plastic. And then to refresh it, you could take 25% more compost than how much soil. So if you have 5 gallons of soil, 25% more of that. You add it to the soil, you mix it up, you put it back in the container with more fertilizer to start a new plant. I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. And you also take that pot before you fill it back up. You take it and you wash it out really well, and you sterilize it by using some kind of dilute hydrogen peroxide or bleach solution to clean up that pot and use it. And that's the way you would use the soil for a container garden. Next slide, please. So there is some pictures of some potting soil. And one thing that's very, very important is to not go out into your yard and dig up soil from your yard and put it in a pot and expect to grow vegetables, because it really doesn't work too well. And if you go out and buy potting soil, there's really a lot of quality differences in what the potting soil looks like. It's if you're going to grow in pots, it's good to invest in good potting soil. So the picture on the left there has is some potting soil, and in my opinion, that's pretty low quality potting soil. It has a lot of wood chunks and bark in it. And if you read the ingredients of that potting soil, probably the first ingredients would be wood chips or bark pieces or something like that. And I used to go out and buy the cheapest bags I could find of potting soil to fill up containers, because they're big containers when you're trying to grow a tomato. And that's the kind of stuff you would get, but you really need to invest in good quality potting soil. So the picture on the right is actually some potting soil that I made. And there's a recipe of potting soil in some of the participant handouts that we gave you. So you could make potting soil like this. So mostly this potting soil has compost in it. It does have some potting mix in it. It has like a vermiculite in or a perlite in it. That's that white stuff, those balls of white stuff in there. And it has compost in it. So that's basically how I mix those things together and make a potting soil that I would use for my my potted plants. And the potting soil that you have to take from your pots and get rid of, because you're dumping it out and replacing it or replenishing it, and you don't need quite as much. You could take that potting soil and you could dump it in your compost, or you could dump it in raised beds. So it's not just like you throw it away after you use it. You can use it like that.
So We've had a lot of good questions here. I'll just start with Leah. What's the cheapest way to buy or make good potting soil?
It's good to invest in good quality potting soil and not find the cheapest. And probably the cheapest way to go is to actually make your own. And, we talked about that already. So,
okay. Where can we get compost from TK? How can we know that the compost is not contaminated by pesticide or herbicides?
The next section is going to be all on compost, so I will answer that later.
Okay. Okay. Very good. If a perennial is in a container, do I need to refresh that soil?
That gets a little harder to refresh it. If you can dig out some soil, that's good, but for sure you're going to have to fertilize it. Even, at the beginning of the season, it's good to try to fertilize that. But if you could up pot it, that would be one way to refresh the soil if you could do something like that. So it kind of depends.
No, I often will, on the bigger pots that I have, they're super heavy and I have perennials or woody kinds of plants in them. I try to at least mulch them with compost every year.
Yeah.
If I'm not moving them to the next size up because they're just too big anymore.